So the threats and the risk are actually very real. In fact, today, April 27th, is a day that I'm supposedly supposed to die according to a threat made on the internet. In fact, it's a photo of me in a ditch with a decapitated head that says, "This is going to be you on April 27th, 2026, in a muddy ditch alongside the highway with your mother. Enjoy your last couple of months, buddy." So I share this not to scare people, but to more so show them what it's actually like kind of being in the political climate, not just seeing it from the outside, but being someone who's actually living through it. Especially with the last assassination attempt on Donald Trump, the threats are real, and you do have a small percentage of the country, even if it's just 1%, that has gone radical. And now I'm not sharing this stuff with you guys to make you guys scared for me. More so, I'm just sharing this so you guys can actually understand what it's actually like living in the political climate. A lot of you guys see it from the outside, but very few people actually enter into the arena. And for me, when I exposed the Minnesota fraud, I was forced to enter into that arena after everything took place. Whether between exposing billions of dollars in fraud, the riots that took place, the shootings that took place, it created a crazy atmosphere where my name was in the forefront of it. And at that time, actually, in Minnesota, you had people posting signs on street poles that said this. These were on signs in Minnesota. It says, "Nick Shirley brought ICE to Minnesota. He helped kill Renee Good. Do not let him in your business. If you see this man, tell him to kill himself." This is just an example of some of the crazy stuff that was said and posted around the internet, and not on the internet, but on literal street poles inside of Minnesota. And a lot of other stuff took place, such as people saying, "Charlie Kirk needs a sequel. Send Nick Shirley hate mail. He needs to be deported to Russia so he can be a Nazi there. Nick Shirley is a Nazi. Nazis don't deserve to live in the Midwest, and we are kicking them all out until their ideology is dead. You will pay for your crimes, don't worry." And then at the same time, you have the people these people listen to watching clips of very popular streamers on the internet openly saying stuff like this.
My understanding of it is that the property owners who have properties there choose just not to rent it at all.
Yeah, kill them. Kill those motherfuckers and murder those motherfuckers in the street. Let the streets soak in their fucking red capitalist bloods, dude.
You have people getting riled up. In fact, in Minnesota, you even had Ilhan Omar in the back of a truck bed riling up protesters. They even canceled school. And it led to even more people going out into the streets of Minnesota. But I'm talking about these threats because they actually are real. And after they tried to assassinate Donald Trump for the 4th time, I figured, all right, I'll share my experience with this, as people are openly making threats to me as well. Now, these are just a few of them. I still get threats consistently when I go travel now. I have to have security, and it's all for exposing fraud, which is a bit crazy to think that for exposing billions of dollars in fraud, now I've exposed $2 billion fraud industries with what happened in Minnesota, and also what happened in California with the hospices and the Medicare fraud that took place there underneath Medi-Cal. And that fraud is so big, and this fraud that's taking place inside our country is so big and so deep that you're seeing it. It's very hard to unravel because that's how intertwined the fraud is. People in Minnesota have been charged and have been caught for fraud in the autism centers, in the daycares with Feeding Our Future. In fact, the daycare that I visited in the video that had received around $3.6 million was that daycare that was running Feeding Our Futures. And when I showed up to their daycare, there were no kids. In fact, that lady who was running that daycare even tried to flee to the United Kingdom, but was stopped at the airport, and then she pleaded guilty here inside the United States. So these people are getting caught. However, the prosecutions and these arrests are taking a lot longer than we all want. But the fraud is very real. And for you to expose fraud inside the United States, you'd think it'd be celebrated, especially by the governments inside of these states. However, as you guys have seen time and time again, the governors then come out defending the fraudsters versus the person exposing the fraud, creating this weird paradox where their radicalized group of a small percentage the public that they're trying to speak to and the public that they're trying to get their votes from then has that little subset of people who actually are radicalized. And they then go after the person exposing the fraud. While the majority of the country, I would say about more than 90% of the country is happy that this fraud is being exposed because we all pay taxes and we don't like to see our money go to waste. However, when politicians, for instance, Governor Tim Walz, is exposed and this billion-dollar fraud ring that's been going underneath him is exposed, he then comes out and says that you are a white supremacist for going after the fraud. You're a delusional far-right conspiracy theorist. However, he then drops out for running for re-election because of the fraud. That's how deep it is. But yet he wants to perceive you to the public as if you're some delusional far-right conspiracy theorist or that you're a white supremacist for exposing the fraud, because then that makes you look like the bad person. Meanwhile, less people think about what he has actually done. Or Ilhan Omar being in the back of a truck bed riling up protesters to go against ICE and abolish ICE. Meanwhile, there are billions of dollars of fraud that's been taking place underneath her district. And then let's take California, for example. I go there and I expose $170 million in fraud that actually exposes a whole entire billion-dollar industry. Well, what does the governor do? The governor then posts an AI-generated image of myself looking like a pervert going into daycares asking, where are the kids? Well, the thing is, there were actually never any kids to start off with. However, millions and billions of dollars is being stolen from the people of California and the people of the United States, because that money is also federal money. Yet they want to make me look like the bad person for exposing that fraud. Once again, that then goes and radicalizes a small percentage of the country. Even if a small percentage of the country is radicalized, let's say just 1%, that is 3 million people. Now let's just say 0.5% of the country is radicalized and they do believe what they hear in the news or what they hear from the people they listen to. For instance, just the idea of letting red capitalist blood soak in the streets. So then let's say that 0.5% of the country is radicalized. That is still 1.5 million people. That's a very large size army. Like, that's a huge amount of people that are then radicalized. And when you're walking around in public spaces where there's thousands of people, all it takes is just one radicalized person to do something crazy. And when you think about that, it makes you realize how crazy the political climate here is inside the United States, when you have been hearing people on the right be called Nazis, fascist, far right, everything, to then make the radicalized 0.1%, even if it's 0.1%, that's still 300,000 people. So you have a small percentage of the country who are quite literally radicalized into believing that they need to go out and kill you. They need to go out and stop you because you are a far right fascist, you are a Nazi, when in reality, you are nothing even close to that. And so they use these trigger words to then radicalize a small subset of the country. And it's actually working. That's the terrifying part. We had Charlie Kirk, who was brutally and horrifically assassinated in front of thousands of people. That was just one radicalized individual who then went and took his life. You've had 4 people try and kill President Trump. I receive messages frequently saying that they're coming for me or they would like to kill me, which is quite frankly a bit crazy. Then you walk the streets and all people are thankful for you for doing what you're doing, which is great to see. However, like I said, even if it's just 0.1% of the population, that is still 300,000 people. Say it's 1%, 3 million people, which is a large army. And so when you think about what's happening in the country, it actually is a bit terrifying, and we are leaving farther and farther away from just the common sense, or the idea that people won't even have conversations with other people or be friends with others because of your political beliefs, which I don't even think that should be a thing. I think you should be able to have friends on the left, you should be able to have friends on the right, and at the end of the day you can come together, because when you read the Constitution, I've always said and I've looked over it and been reading it and studying it over the past few weeks. I think the most important words are the first three words that say "we the people." It never said "we the people" on the Republican Party, "we the people" on the Democratic Party, we need the best for our party. It says "we the people." Like, America was created to bring forth a better society, and we are the best society. Every other country had thousands of years to do it. We've had 250 years to do it, and everyone to this day wants to come here. They want to know more about the United States, and we are the powerhouse of the world, essentially. Everything runs through the United States. The dollar is supreme for a reason, and that's because of what made America great in those first 250 years. And now for these next 250 years, what's that going to look like if we can't even have a conversation with a Democrat and a Republican? It's actually very terrifying. And I want to make this video, it's a bit different than anything I've ever posted here on this channel, but I just want to show you guys and tell you guys from a perspective of somebody who's actually living inside of the arena, not just an outsider speculating or being a critic. In fact, I'm quite frankly on the streets going about making these videos, showing what's happening inside our country. And from the perspective of just of everyday Americans, our country is so huge and diverse, and it's so big and so amazing. And the perspective and point of view you get from people out in public is what actually makes journalism great, is because you actually need the source from the people. You don't need the source from somebody sitting behind a podcast desk. Quite frankly, you need it from the people. So that's what I personally try to do, so people can see it for what it is. And I believe President Trump said something super important after the assassination attempt just the other night. I want to play that clip right here.
Studied assassinations, and I must tell you, the most impactful people, the people that do the most, you take a look at the people, Abraham Lincoln, I mean, you go through the people that have gone through this, where they got them. But the people that do the most, the people that make the biggest impact, they're the ones that they go after. They don't go after the ones that don't do much because they like it that way. And when you look at the people that have either, whether it was an attempt or a successful attempt, they're very impactful people. Just take a look at the names there, the big names. And I hate to say I'm honored by that, but I've done a lot. We've done a lot. We've taken this country, and we were a laughing stock for years, and now we're the hottest country anywhere in the world. We've changed this country, and there are a lot of people that are not happy about that.
And now if you look at the past as far as who's been assassinated between Abraham Lincoln, MLK, John F. Kennedy, Charlie Kirk, they are going after people who are doing something good for society. They only go after the people that are actually creating an impact. And for that same reason, I believe that's why people come after me for exposing fraud, because it is making an impact and it is taking down billion-dollar fraud industries. And so when you're doing something good and you're doing something impactful, a sign that you're doing something good is actually by receiving pushback from the opposition, because we've learned that the fraudsters do complain the loudest, and those that are committing the crimes are also complaining the loudest because they don't want their crimes and their fraud to be exposed. And so when you're doing something impactful for the common good of the people, be ready and expect the opposition to come after you. It's just a sad reality that we are living in. I don't think that it's going to change anytime soon. In fact, it might only get worse. So I just want to share this perspective with you guys. And what happens in public affects what happens in the private. For instance, if people are calling you all sorts of things and creating all these sorts of narratives and lies in the public, what happens to you privately is a bit different. This perspective from an outside then affects who people think you are actually. And for instance, in my case, I remember I exposed this fraud, and I remember just receiving like an onslaught of messages, both positive and negative, from people I haven't talked to in years. And some people are obviously in support, and some people are saying like, why are you doing this? Like, what's this? Like, calling you all sorts of stuff, when in reality you're just going about doing a public service. Or you have a lifelong friend who is no longer your friend for simply just exposing that, or family members who just stop talking simply because of that, or just friends that one day you're talking, you're having a great conversation, and before the fraud, and then you expose the fraud and never ever to be seen again. It's just really weird stuff that happens when you go out and you do something that does make a difference. And that's just kind of the consequences, and maybe not so the consequences, but what happens when exposing the truth. And I want to share this quote while I wrap this up. There's a super powerful quote. It's by Mark Twain, actually. And it says, "The truth has no defense against a fool determined to believe a lie." That might be the most true quote I've ever read. The truth has no defense against a fool determined to believe a lie. You can't convince a fool who's determined to believe a lie to believe the truth. In this world, there are things that are truth and stuff that is not truthful, obviously. And we must pursue those things and those actions and the beliefs that follow with truth. I'm a firm believer that there is truth and there are just stuff that is completely false in this world. And it's our responsibility to seek the truth, go after it, and pursue it. And don't be that fool who's determined to believe a lie. And thank you very much for watching this video. If you do want to help support the work that I am doing, you can go to antifraudclub.com. There we have hoodies available, other ways for people to support as well. It's a crazy time we're living in, and I thought this video would bring some extra perspective to what's happening inside our country. And I guess that's it. Thank you very much. I know this video is a lot different, and we'll get back to the regular programming in just the next few days as we have even more fraud to expose, believe it or not. Peace out.